So we're going to be taking a look at Michelle Obama, Feminine Leadership. This was a book written by Austin Brooks. I'm going to be presenting it. My name is Emma Pashota. So a little background before I get into it. Michelle Robinson was her name before she was Michelle Obama. She grew up on the south side of Chicago with her whole family, so it was a really tight-knit family. She went to Whitney Young Magnet High School, which is a little bit outside of Chicago, and then after that she went to Princeton University, and then after Princeton University she went to Harvard Law School. So to say she's smart. So then after Harvard Law School she got a job at Sidley Austin Law Firm, which is back in Chicago, and then this is where she meets her husband. So after a few years working at the law firm, she decides that she wants to work in the public sector to really kind of combine her passions in her job to really do something about that. So we're gonna look at that and her leadership skills too. Leadership skills, how'd they come about? So in the book it kind of explains how her dad had multiple sclerosis and how she remembers him kind of getting up for work every day with, having to use 2 canes, and imagine walking around the house every day with 2 canes, but going to work and having to walk around every day at work with 2 canes. I couldn't even imagine it. So I feel like that really showed her a lot of determination at a really young age. Also, another thing that I really thought was really important that her parents started at a really young age was letting her speak her mind and having a safe environment for her to speak her mind and be opinionated. Another thing that I thought really happened when she was at a young age is because of her dad having multiple sclerosis, that made her kind of have to grow up a little bit faster and have to really, just get over things a little bit faster too, or just make them feel her fire a little bit more. So also, before I change this slide, this last bullet point is kind of an example of how fueling the fire kind of started. So this example is kind of her experiencing what she thought a little bit of sexism was, where on page 11 it talks about how people would approach her and her brother at school, but no one would really talk to her, they would just talk to her brother. So she really thought that was because of her age and her gender. So, leadership in the grown-up world, part 1. We're going to talk about 2 themes, gender and race, but mostly a little bit of race because that's kind of really what she focuses on in her Harvard Law School days. So, mainly what I mean by that is there was an article written by her, to be more specific, a 3,000-worded article, that was about the faculty at Harvard Law School not being diverse. So she kind of wrote this article stating how not diverse the faculty was and how she really thought that was, impacting a lot of things. So she, as I wrote here, she really used her platform of being at a higher education. She used that to bring an issue on display and really bring that to attention to a lot of people, which brings out a lot in the leadership skills that she shows. So that's a really big thing. So this right here I thought was huge. Another thing, just to kind of back up the thought of gender and race, is the fact that there was a quote put in the book that says Michelle always, everything she wrote, the things that she was involved in, the things that she thought about were in effect reflections on race and gender. So that's just another thing that kind of backs up the fact that she was really into race and gender, and she really wanted to focus on those 2 things, that those really made her fuel her fire, which I'm probably going to say that a lot, but whatever. So that's part 1. Part 2, but this is the kind of the job edition. So this one I kind of just go over what the jobs that she did after she left the law firm and she was in the public sector. So this is where we kind of get into how her determination really flew through all these, and how she learned so many leadership skills throughout all these. So first, assistant to the mayor of Chicago, Assistant Commissioner of Planning and Development for Chicago, Executive Director in the Chicago Office of Public Affairs, Vice President for Community and Internal Affairs at University of Chicago Medical Center. That's crazy. She started at Assistant to Mayor of Chicago, which is huge, but then ended up at the Vice President of what? Community of Internal Affairs at University of Chicago Medical Center. That's crazy. That's huge. So just within that, she learned so many leadership skills, but also, you know, that built a lot of her character that she is today. So, Leadership in the Grown-Up World Part 3, First Lady Edition. We're talking race and gender, but now we're talking gender and a little bit of education up in there. So as a First Lady, you kind of like produce projects that you really want to focus on. So her first project as First Lady was called Let's Move. And personally, I remember that from like Disney Channel. I remember those commercials all the time. So this project really aimed at children and their families to get outside, get physical for like 60 minutes a day. Second project was collab with Joe Biden, which is Vice President Joe Biden's wife. They focused on the support of veterans and their families. Third project was called Reach Higher. This basically, the purpose was this to get kids' attention on higher education and really have them reach for higher education and like have them go for those goals, because that just gets you more, you know, takes you higher. The fourth one is her most recent one, which is called Let Girls Learn. This is in collab with President Obama, and it really focuses on just girls, but from all around the world, and it really teaches them about higher education and gets them to that higher education and focuses on like, expanding their horizons and focusing on their future, which is awesome. Leadership in the Grown World Part 4, Mother Edition. This is kind of focusing on her leadership skills as a mother. So when Barack Obama started campaigning, she went with him, but she made a plan first on how she really wanted it to go. So she made this plan up where they would only be gone. They would be campaigning, right? But they would only be gone in full for 2 days and a night. So basically they could never, like, they wouldn't be gone from their family within 2 days. You know, so they would always come home after a night of campaigning, unless they were far, far away. They would take like a short weekend or something. So she really thought that through, and especially with campaigning, that's crazy, and that's huge, because, you know, campaigning, you have to go a lot for a long ways, for a long time every day, and then you're gonna go back to the same place, and then you gotta go farther, and it's just a lot. So, second bullet point. As the First Lady, she also made sure that her girls lived as normal as a life as possible. So for this, there's a quote in the book that they really kind of generally don't include the girls and stuff. They kind of let them do their own thing. They want to normalize their lives as much as possible, which I thought, how could you do if your dad was the president of the United States? But they have their ways, and I feel that. So, in conclusion, Michelle Obama uses her goal-orientedness, determination, open-mindedness, past experiences, and abilities to take on advantages of situations to get her where she is today. So this really built her to who she is today, and her leadership skills and all that stuff. So thanks for watching.